with Raida's politics.
Yes.
I served as his CEO for the Constitution. It was him and Kibaki were leading the constitutional process. And I remember I would report to him every day, particularly when he got ill and was confined to Nairobi Hospital. So whenever possible, every morning I had to go and brief him about what the strategy we are going to do and so on. Then during the Azimio, I came back and I was in his party, and I was one of the so-called brain trust.
Yes,
with his brother.
Yes,
and Tuju and my brother Adam Solos were part of the brain trust.
Yes.
Now, and from time to time, he would call me and or I would go to his place and for just a quick discussion. Nothing major. One constant figure in Raida's, life was Ida Odinga.
Interesting, yeah.
And in one of the sittings, I listened to her, talking about her life and that of Raila from Mamraka Halls in Nairobi, at the Nairobi University. Very deeply intellectual.
Right.
Very, very consistent.
Right.
And even if you remember her handing over of Raila to the Kenyans. I and the family have released Raila.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and this was very constant. Even in 2012, when she was an antagonist to us, under Kibaki, I remember that her speech that time ahead of the election 2007 that turned out to be very chaotic. I think the main differences would be, to me, between her and Oburu. This is it. And she's a taller, stronger, more unifying figure because she understands who Raila was and how he worked.
Right.
And let me hazard, because I'm a Kenyan and I can speak for myself and for the Republic sometimes. I think what we have not seen now is the Ida moment. And the Ida moment, to me, is very, very close to the Namibia moment.
Yes.
Where we have, that, president who is a lady.
Yes.
And the Ida moment can even be more complicated, almost mirroring Namibia. If Ida teams up with her friend, Mother Karua.
Yes.
And we have two giant female leaders in our country, and that will galvanize our politics. And that leads me to the question, might that be the reason why Ida is being exiled to the UN, to the UN corridors of power, rather than being around to be a free player?
That is true.
This is. So look at, Ida, Orengo, and Anyang.
Right.
Now, together with the Sifuna and Babu,
I'm not inclined to that side.
That is a movement. You can now move that to this other side of the united opposition, and you have a perfect 2002 moment.
Very true.
And the country changes.
Very, very
now,
true.
So I think we are focusing on saying, we need all this. I think the big thing we have not thought about and we have not invested in thinking is the Ida moment as the heir to Raila Odinga. Because Raila Odinga himself listened only to one person, Ida Odinga. And Ida was also the leader of the father of Raila. She's the single constant figure in the Odinga dynasty. The single constant figure. That's why you find that immediately Raila passed on, the first target of attack in terms of character assassination and smearing of her family was essentially Ida. Why? Because she's the straight and direct and deserving heir to Raila Odinga.
So I hear you say, because there have been many things that have been said in terms of narratives here, and I think can contribute to this, is that number one, that there was an external hand in the deconstruction of the ODM party.
Yes.
And that if that's the case, then that there were deliberate and intentional activities to ensure that the ODM party was broken down into pieces that were then unrecoverable later.
Right.
And that the individuals then who would have been responsible for keeping this party as one were then given new shiny toys to play with.
Right.
And we can see this happening.
Yes.
If that's go give Ida Odinga a big UN job to be busy with for the next couple of I don't know how many years. And then make sure that the principles, as it were, who would move forward an agenda have then been removed.
Exactly.
So again, we go back to the giraffe in the forest kind of thing.
Correct.
Everybody's saying that the party is still intact, but we can see that there's something else going. Is there an external hand in all of this to ensure that possibly the longest serving party with the agenda over the last 25 years then has been reduced to almost nothing?
Yeah, but if you look at it, I mean, immediately Raila passes on, and now I'm speaking as an ODM member. We are told that Dr. Buru, Honorable Dr. Buru, would come in and be a sort of caretaker party leader.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, playing on African cultures and heritage and all those sort of things. That during death periods, generally what happens is that you basically get the next person by order of birth, to oversee that particular ceremony. That's how it's normally done. So I mean, if your oldest uncle alive is the one who will take over, who will chair, not necessarily take over, who will chair during that transition. You don't install a leader during that transition. In fact, for some cultures, it's at the end of that morning that then a leader is installed within the family. So all of us have been waiting for this moment when the real ODM leader would be installed. Because for us,
that moment was to be Friday.
Exactly. And because as far as we're concerned, Oburu was to actually lead us through the morning period based on the African cultures and so on. Because we know for a fact that there are very many factors, including age, that may not actually work for Oburu in terms of driving the party agenda, in terms of campaigning vigorously across the country and so on. And the other day I was just looking at it.
But he's a youth.
He's the youth leader.
Yeah, he's a youth leader.
It is very interesting, and that also has a corollary in the African culture. Normally when somebody become quite old, they would basically refer to their grandchildren as their husband and mother and so on. That it was actually a way of saying, fine, I mean, I'm continuing my life through these people and so on. So definitely I look at Oburu's youthfulness in that regard. So I think that the fellow who imagines that the youthfulness means that he can run across the country, I think they've got it all wrong. The youthfulness simply means that he is in the life of these other generation and live through them. That was the proper African cultural position, and I think it's still whatever. But look at it as again. I was analyzing this. I was saying, this is actually sad because we have a team that is supporting in ODM that is supporting the president, the broad-based government, and basically you'd expect that this team is then campaigning for the president in Luo Nyanza specifically, because the president camped there for 1 week. But basically it was the president campaigning for himself and for them. and partly you compare that with the Tononoka group. These guys do have, whether we like it or not, they do have the energy, they do have the presence, they can sustain rallies, across board. So what we're expecting was that this ceremonial leadership of Oburu was going to come to an end. But then I think those who are behind it, I think it is always, it is a problem with this country and with the leadership of the country that you put weak people or apparently weak people in position, believing that then you'll be able to manipulate them. But what I always tell people is that if you put weak people in position, unfortunately, you'll have to do the work that they're meant to have been doing. And I think this is the problem that UDA was not seeing. If anything, I would rather UDA work with the Sifuna group because they do have the energy, they do have the dynamics, they do have the work, and they'll do the work.
Allow me to ask, Professor.
Because currently, the president will do all the work of UDA, and if he's not careful, he might also have to do all the work of the faction that he devolved the work to,
allow me to ask,
within ODM.
Professors. Well, while all these dynamics are playing out, I'm hearing lack of political